Hey, what's up everybody? TJ and Carrie here with Muscle Growth Mindset. We want to dig into metabolism a little bit, something that's come up, and I don't know, maybe you guys have seen it, metabolic flexibility. So we want to kind of explain what that is and what it means, and just some things to think about when it comes to metabolism.
Right.
So basically, what is metabolism?
Metabolism is the rate at which your body burns fuel. Basically, that's the most.
Right. So people think about your BMR, basal metabolic rate, and that's basically how many calories your body is going to burn at rest. If you were to just wake up and lay in bed all day and not ever move, your body will burn this many calories. There's formulas to figure this out, and they're okay. They give you an idea. But you got to consider they go off weight, like male, female, and there's a lot of other factors that come into play. Like maybe me and Carrie are the same age, same weight, but that doesn't mean our metabolism are exactly the same.
Right.
So I think you just have to take that with a grain of salt a little bit. But it is a good tool to start with. So metabolism is huge, right? We need to have a good metabolism to burn fat, right?
Yes, generally a well-functioning metabolism to burn fat, and so the reason a lot of times they're based on weight is because it's calories. So how many calories, and then the more cells in your body, generally the more calories you're going to need to keep everything alive.
I think one factor that isn't clear there is muscle versus fat.
Right.
The more muscle you have, the faster that metabolic rate is going to be.
Yeah.
So if you're 220 pounds of muscle, a bodybuilder with 5 or 6% body fat, or you're 220 pound dad bod with 36% body fat, just because you're both 220 pounds doesn't mean you're going to be burning the same amount of calories every day.
Right.
So like I said, just use the BMR, as a guide maybe, but there's a lot more to it.
Right. It's a pretty good guide.
Yeah. That's what we're going to dig into, though. So, metabolism is important. We want to burn as much as possible most of the time, right?
Okay. Yes, I will say that most of the time. Although slowing your metabolism has its purposes as well. Also, if anybody's heard the idea that a pound of muscle burns 70 calories a day, that's actually not true. Muscle does burn a little bit more than fat, but not in those ratios.
Man. I wish it did.
Yeah,
trying to do the math on that.
The heavy bodybuilders wouldn't be able to eat enough to survive. Right.
I wonder where that came from. Okay, so you're saying it's not always good to burn for your metabolism to be running at a really high rate.
No. So metabolism is for some people, they think of it as a clock, right? So the clock, think of it as your lifespan, and if you're burning fuel at a high rate, that clock is spinning fast at a fast rate. So many people, when they get older, they're trying to find a way to slow down the metabolism without having any detrimental health effects.
Right. So for anti-aging purposes, slowing down your metabolism may not be a bad idea.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we say that. And that doesn't mean you want a slow metabolism all the time. That doesn't mean, and there's good and bad ways of doing this.
Right.
I could just start eating a ton of junk and stop working out and get really fat, and I'm sure my metabolism would slow down.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about here. There's some healthier ways to do it and ways to manipulate your metabolism, and we'll get into that. So for a bodybuilding or physique type perspective, if I'm wanting to get lean, if I'm, it's summer now, if I want to look good on the beach, I want to speed my metabolism up so I can burn more fat, right? Generally
speaking, yes, you want to up your metabolism so you can get as lean as possible.
Okay. So what are some ways of doing that? How can I speed up my metabolism?
Are you for a general populace or for a bodybuilder?
Let's say I just want to go to the beach and I want to get leaner and look better on the beach.
Okay. Well, we'll go with the topic of metabolic inflexibility first off. So when your metabolism slows down, your body becomes metabolically inflexible. Your body gets confused by throwing every single kind of energy source possible at it all the time, and then it becomes unable to break down fats for energy. It becomes a lot harder, and then it also becomes insulin resistant. So once your body gets confused by an overload, there's a couple of problems that start, either obesity and or diabetes. So
the best way to regulate metabolism is to be metabolically flexible.
correct.
And metabolically flexible means basically your body is capable of switching gears pretty easily on what energy source it uses. Am I right
Lipids, carbohydrates, and doing some research on the carnivore diet, proteins are definitely something that they can use frequently for energy.
there? Okay. So what's the best way we can get metabolically flexible so we can switch back and forth as needed to use these different energy sources to get leaner?
The easiest way to start increasing your metabolism is to force your body to use different kinds of fuels at different times, which exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the first step. If anybody needs somewhere to start, I hear the debate, or people ask the question, or they say, I'm going to get my diet right and eat right for a month, and then I'm going to go to the gym. Or, I mean, the best thing to do is get in the gym and start doing something. Or you don't even have to get in the gym, and get out and start walking, be active. And that's going to help get that metabolism up. And that's the first step in getting flexibility with your metabolism.
Absolutely.
So we start exercising. We're going to the gym a couple days a week. We're going out and doing some walking or jogging. What do I do now?
Then you start controlling the diet. And there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Basic caloric restriction is the number one way to do that, and forces your body start to burning fats for fuel, which is great if you want to get leaner. Burn the fats for fuel. Another way is intermittent fasting. You can get in a caloric overload and use different kinds of fuels for energy, but intermittent fasting will force you at some point to switch over to fat oxidation.
Okay, you mentioned caloric restriction. Now, I've heard if you go on a caloric restriction for too long, or you diet for so long and undereat, you're going to slow your metabolism down.
That is correct. Absolutely. So, to the point of anti-aging and caloric restriction, if you get down to a certain leanness and you're using caloric restriction, if you want to slow down the aging process, that's great. In fact, that is the number one way they found in any model of any life form that's controllable, from yeast to rats, where we can measure what happens when we do caloric restriction. They found that you can increase the lifespan of these creatures by using caloric restriction. So it slows down the metabolism. You have to get to a certain amount of leanness, you have to use a different variety of tricks. If you're exercising and doing caloric restriction, you get down to a certain point, your body's oxidizing fats very well, then you start increasing foods.
So just know, like, if you got a little fluff, if you got some extra love, then you're probably safe. Your body's going to utilize that as fuel for a while. You don't have to worry about your metabolism slowing down too much. But everybody gets that sticking point, like you drop that first 20 pounds or something, and then you kind of stall. You can start slowing your metabolism down. So what are some tricks for that? You mentioned adding food back in. One of my favorite things, and I think most effective things to do, is nutrient cycling. You've heard carb cycling, but it's carb cycling, fat cycling. So it keeps your metabolism flexible. You increase carbs on some days, increase fats on other days, so you're not eating the same fuel sources all the time. It kind of keeps your body guessing. And this, in my opinion, most effectively works after you've kind of been in a caloric restriction for a while. So you want to kind of diet for a while, lose that first X amount of pounds, wait till you hit that plateau, and then start the carb cycling. And that's a good way to stay in an overall caloric restriction, where over the week or 10 days you've taken in less calories than you've burned, but on some days it's pretty low, on some days it's a little higher than your whatever you're burning that day. but as a whole, over that span, you've burned more calories than you've taken in. It's a good way to kind of trick your body and keep that metabolism going. Agree, disagree?
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. Definitely.
What are some other ways we can manipulate our metabolism and stay metabolically flexible? I'm having a hard time saying this.
It's a tongue twister. So, you can also manipulate hormones. Your hormones are negatively affected by metabolic inflexibility. It really messes with. So, becoming metabolically inflexible will negatively affect all of the things that keep you healthy and lean. So, overeating constantly is it's the opposite, right? So you can manipulate your thyroid and your testosterone as well to increase your metabolism.
Right. I think it's important to have those levels in check, and you need to know what they are. I always recommend people get blood work done and see where their thyroid and testosterone, estrogen levels are, because a lot of times obesity will cause low testosterone. Low testosterone will cause obesity. And same with thyroid. If your thyroid levels are low, then there could be an issue with your metabolism. So you can get prescriptions for this. That's not the first step, is run out and get a prescription, but you can take a T3 or T4, which increase basically the signal for your body to start producing thyroid hormone, which speeds up the metabolism. You put it pretty good a while ago. You said like thyroid is the gas for your metabolism.
Yeah.
If your metabolism is the engine running.
Metabolism is the engine running. The thyroid
is the gas to push it.
And there are so I've got a client who has who takes a thyroid, a natural thyroid medication instead of one of the drugs. So it's just plants. And I found out later that some of the supplements I was taking were plants that were used in the natural thyroid medication. So there are supplements you can use that can boost your thyroid production and increase your metabolism thereby. So
unless you're on the carnivore diet.
In the carnivore diet, yes, it's but carnivore diet with no carbs, and it's you naturally get pretty lean. It's hard to eat so much meat.
Carrie's been on the carnivore diet for how long?
6-7 weeks now.
Yeah, so he's been giving that a shot. So he can't have anything plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
You can check out our carnivore video to learn more about that. But it's been an interesting.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of changes.
Study here.
Yeah, lots of changes.
Okay, so back to let's talk about that metabolic flexibility. You're saying having your body needs different energy sources, but not too much of too many, if that makes sense. So if you're taking a bunch of carbs and a bunch of fats, then metabolism is going to slow down. It's going to be, kind of explain that to me.
So I'm going to go into the science portion of this. So if you've taken a basic college biology class, you learn that glycolysis makes some things that pyruvate that goes into acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA goes into the Krebs cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle. There's a few different names for it. And that makes the majority of the ATP that is produced in our body. But there's a lot of different ways to get acetyl-CoA to put into oxidative phosphorylation. You can use it by breaking down the glycolysis from glucose. You can use it. You can do it from lipids, and you can get it from proteins. And any of those can plug in to acetyl-CoA, to the Krebs cycle, to make the majority of energy for our body. And if you are overloading your body with this, your mitochondrial system gets a little confused, and at some point it starts trying to sort out which one we're using. We've got it all the time, and it'll shut down lipid oxidation, because the lipids are useful for a lot of things, and it's great for storing energy, so we're no longer going to use that.
Lipid is fat. Oxidation is like burning, so it shuts down the fat burning. Like your body won't burn the fat because it feels like it's got plenty of energy. You fed it too much. It doesn't need any more, so it doesn't burn it, right?
Right. And that also makes your body start becoming insulin resistant. Insulin stores extra surplus materials. We've got extra, let's store it. And it's like, whoa, we've got a lot of storage. We're not going to burn the fats, but we don't really need any more. But insulin resistance causes a whole bunch of of health problems.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, the negative issues with insulin resistance. And we've talked about insulin sensitivity before, which is almost a synonym of metabolic flexibility.
Yes,
whenever you're metabolically flexible, you're insulin sensitive,
sensitive. Mm-hmm.
which is a good thing. That's where you want to be, because then whenever you do take in carbohydrates, your body utilizes them. It doesn't store the excess.
Right.
So yeah, you want to be insulin sensitive, and your body can use, like Carrie said, a bunch of different things as energy sources. You don't just need carbs to keep your metabolism going. You don't just need fats. Any of these can serve, and basically be broken down and turned into a usable, viable energy source for your body.
But your body also wants to choose one primary method for energy. Like, at least in my research of ketogenic and carnivore diets, your body wants to choose one over the other. And generally, most athletes are going to use carbohydrates.
Carbs, yeah. Okay. So call that in.
Yeah.
So, what do we do here? What's the best diet tips? If we want to, we've mentioned a lot, but if somebody says, okay, just tell me what I need to do. What do I need to eat to be metabolically flexible?
You, first off, don't be eating all the time. That's the primary thing.
Yeah.
So intermittent fasting or caloric restriction is going to be, because you're going to be confusing your body if you're eating all the time. So at least you can eat 6 meals a day in a caloric controlled environment. You're still going to have the 8 hours of sleep where you're not eating. If you're getting up to eat midnight snacks, you're not doing your body justice, first off. Second, get that exercise, get your body trying to oxidize fats, because it has to do that during a workout. It's going to oxidize more different kinds of fuel, so it's going to become more metabolically flexible. And that's if you want to speed up your metabolism. So you reduce the amount of calories so you get to a certain amount of leanness, and then you eat more to keep your body at a high metabolic rate. Right,
yeah, the first step, unless you've been in a caloric restriction for a while, then this may not be the right answer for you. Then you may need to start increasing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just starting, you're like, okay, I'm overweight, I'm obese, I'm chubby, whatever you want to call it, whatever you are, you're like, I need to get my metabolism in check and start getting healthier and burning fat. The first thing you do, drop your calories, get in a deficit, basically start dieting, and start dropping body fat. And then it's going to get your body trained up to use and kind of crave what it needs.
Right.
Because if you're just feeding it all this junk, it doesn't really crave anything, or it has everything it needs, and it's like, okay, we know we have an abundance, so we don't have to work hard. But when you aren't giving your body everything it needs necessarily, when you're starving it in a deficit, then now it's like, okay, whenever you do give me some carbs, I'm going to use this.
Mm-hmm.
My body's going to tear through it pretty fast. So
remember, exercise jump starts that process.
Step 1, exercise. Step 2, caloric restriction. That can be done many ways. Intermittent fasting, just, you can go off your BMR, set it around that, or just over your BMR if you're exercising.
Yeah.
Okay. Past that, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, there's also, if you want to slow down your metabolism, if you're healthy and you're exercising, you're eating right, and you want to slow down your metabolism, then you follow the caloric restriction and restrict your calories, and your body becomes adjusted to that and slows down metabolism. I've done it. I've been there, and that's actually, I was more experimenting with removing more body fat. And I got to a point where I realized my body had just adjusted to the amount of calories. But it will increase your lifespan if you want to live longer. There's also metformin, which can help slow that down as well. Look into that. It's a anti-diabetic drug that is now used commonly as anti-aging. It's something you have to get a prescription from with your doctor, but something to look into if you want to.
Yeah, and we're talking about two different ends of the spectrum here.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're anti-aging versus, muscle growth and muscle building,
right?
You're not going to do both at the same time. If
No.
you're doing everything it takes to put on as much muscle as possible, you're taking years off your life.
Yep.
If you and that's great. That's what I've done for a long time. But there's a point where you gotta start thinking, okay, I have muscle, and now I'm getting older, and maybe I don't want to die.
I will say,
50.
when you say taking years off your life, I know that if you are healthy and exercising, you're going to be adding a healthy a lifespan. So there's a point where not exercising and not increasing your metabolism can decrease your health so bad that you will die prematurely.
I'm referring to excessive muscle. I'm referring to bodybuilding, and you look at these pro bodybuilders, if they don't change their lifestyle, they're not going to live to be very old.
That happens.
So, and I'm at that point where I have a pretty good amount of muscle. I'm not a small guy. Like, I'm not going to live to be 80 or 90 like I am now. When I'm finished bodybuilding, I have to tone it back. I need to lose some of this muscle, and I need to start thinking about these anti-aging things more so than the bodybuilding things.
Right.
And that's just real talk for you people out there. When you're young and and some people are pretty hardcore about the bodybuilding thing, and that's great. But there's life after bodybuilding.
Yeah. And probably around 40, it's something everyone needs to look at. If you're a major bodybuilder, figure out how to slow down these, aging processes.
What about supplementation? Like, you're thinking metabolism. What about fat burners and things like that?
Yes, those are always something to consider. I'm not a big fan of stacking fat burners. I've used a few different ones, but generally the basic method works for most people. And what I really dislike seeing is people who aren't doing the things. You're not dieting, you're not exercising, they're using fat burners, and it just drives me a little bonkers.
Yeah, that should be the third or fourth or fifth step. There's no point in taking a fat burner if you're eating shit, right? Like, I mean, if you're going out and not exercising and going out and eating Whataburger, like, don't worry about the fat burner. Like, get your exercise program, get your nutrition under control, and then fat burners. That's the next step.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I rarely take any fat burners. The only
caffeine.
The only thing I do, or the only reason I ever would implement a fat burner, really is for energy. Whenever I'm dieting hard, and I'm dragging, then I do it just for energy. Like, sure, it gives you more energy, so you burn more because you're more active. That's kind of the way I see it. As far as, is there a magic pill out there? Not yet. I'm still looking. But no, a fat burner is not the way to go. Off the top. So it's something
especially if you're a little at sticking point, you don't know where to go, put a little extra on there. I think caffeine is just, I love caffeine, so.
Yeah. Well, I like me some caffeine. I have a couple cups of coffee, and especially when I'm dieting, like when I'm starting to suffer, I'll do pre-workout and stuff. Just get through my workouts. But as far as just going in to the supplement shop and grabbing whatever the strongest fat burner there is right off the top, that's not going to help your metabolism if you're not doing the nutrition and exercise portions.
Yeah.
Okay, so highlights of metabolism. What do we need to know?
Decrease caloric consumption, and for those who have a real problem and are metabolically inflexible, obesity, diabetes, you just stop eating all the time, right? That's the number one thing.
Wait, before we get into that, it just made me think of something. There's a lot of people that undereat already, that are overweight and undereat. Like, I have people all the time that come in and do our challenges or come in to train with me, and they eat one meal a day. Like, okay, I don't eat till, I may grab a Starbucks on the way to work, and then I'll eat dinner when I get home. So should they be calorically restricting, or what should they do? Because their metabolism is probably pretty jacked because they're not eating enough. They're this 200-pound woman that's drinking at Starbucks and eating dinner with the family.
So my assumption is that she's already done a lot of damage to her metabolism by various different things, and now she has slowed down her metabolism to a crawl by eating one meal a day, and probably not a big meal, right? Not like a 3,000 calorie meal. It's probably a very small meal. At that point, I would probably up the food intake, and then exercise is going to jumpstart. So you get her to a point, and then you start removing one of the substrates, usually glucose, because the other two are necessary for living. So you start removing carbohydrates and see what happens to her.
Yeah, so step one, for if that's you or if you know somebody like that that's a big undereater, that's a 1 meal a day kind of person, best thing you can do is eat more, but healthy foods, clean foods. Try to eat 4 or 5 small meals a day, and then get used to that. Even if it's a lot of food, like that's going to be better for you initially, and then you start to scale back and get yourself used to eating. Then you start the caloric restriction. Pull back, like you said, pull back the carbs, and start going on a restriction at that point.
And once you fix those metabolic problems, you can go to, like, if they're older and just want to stay healthy, you can slow down the aging process by a number of ways, caloric restriction, but once you have to get them there first. Yeah. Get them to a healthy spot, and then you can put them back on that same 1 meal a day diet if that's how they... Caloric restriction can slow down the whole aging process, but you have to get them corrected first.
So if you want to live forever, just don't eat. That's what Carrie said. I heard that.
There is a balance there. There's a point when all systems will stop completely, and there's no way to restart the systems once they stop. So, not that I know of. Yeah.
All right. So, okay, back to the recap. Metabolism.
Exercise. First and foremost, it jump starts everything else. It starts your body learning how to use different substrates as fuel. And then caloric restriction. And if you're already at a 1 meal a day, then eat multiple times a day. There's lots of little tricks. Putting in calories 5-6 times a day. But you also want 8 hours of sleeping to be uninterrupted. Right? Don't be getting up for a midnight snack. You have to have at least a spot where you're fasted. That's the basics.
You mentioned, I know we're trying to wrap it up here, but you mentioned getting 8 hours of sleep. Is there relevance on sleep and metabolism?
Sometimes forget some of the most basic things, but this is what I would harp on to everybody. Sleep 8 hours a night. Get your sleep in. If you can only get 6 hours, get 6 hours. But 4 or 5 hours sleep a night is going to wreak havoc on your body, on your systems, all of them.
Yes.
I could go through the list, but it's not good.
Yeah, definitely it's going to jack up your hormones, it's going to jack up your metabolism. Sleep is very important, and a lot of people neglect it. So yeah, sleep at least 6 hours a night of sleep. That doesn't mean you go to bed at midnight and you lay there for an hour and then you only get 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I mean, try to get in bed long enough to sleep at least 6 hours. If you can be in bed 8-9 hours a night, that's ideal.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do that, but just know the importance of it just for overall health, whether we're talking about metabolism,
sleep,
hormone,
diet, exercise.
Yeah.
Sleep, exercise, diet.
Okay, so I think we were kind of all over the place there, but I think we got the point across. Metabolism is important. There's a lot of ways to manipulate it. So if you guys have questions, please put them in the comments, and we can address any issues you guys have or questions you guys have. Until next time.
Don't forget rule number 1.
Hey everybody, I hope you really enjoyed our video. Please like and subscribe if you did.
And if you want to see more, or if you have any questions, leave some comments. Thanks for watching.